Can you be a great leader if you're a terrible communicator?
Or is that like being a great pilot who can't land the plane?
All of that and more.
Take It Offline starts right now.
The fundamentals of business. Mental is a part of the word.
I never ask my clients to judge me on my winners. I ask them to judge me on my losers because I have so few.
There's money in the banana stand.
I'm a hard-working man.
You can't learn how to close. You better start thinking about another career.
Put that coffee down.
Welcome, everybody. This is the Take It Offline podcast. That's Mike, and I'm Nate.
And it's Monday morning, guys, and this is where we're going to talk life, leadership, and everything in between.
Mike and I have decades of leadership experience between the two of us, and while we haven't found all the answers, we certainly enjoy asking the questions and having the conversations and having them together and with you.
Yeah, and you know, Nate, they're questions that we hear each and every day in our own work lives, and we know that people are out there having them. And so I think it's great for us to explore that curiosity and see if we can't maybe bring some different ideas and thoughts to the table.
Absolutely. Tonight's episode, or today's episode, this afternoon's episode, whenever you may be listening, is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be diving into communication and leadership. This is going to be the first part of a multi-part series on communication. More on that shortly. But we're here. Mike is shot out of a cannon today. I just need you all to know that he is sizzling with energy. Typically, Mike, would it be fair to say I'm the higher energy of the two of us?
Yes, absolutely.
And you are matching, if not exceeding, my energy this evening. I mean, you came in, you were a mile a minute, just bam.
Yeah, Nate, that's some pharmaceuticals that are working overtime right now. For the those that don't know, I've had a little bit of a kidney stone issue going on this week.
That's right. Yeah, we had to cancel our podcast taping earlier in the week, and so now we're here tonight.
Yeah. And so in order to make it through, I'm using what was prescribed.
We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, and it's I'm feeling no pain.
Then it's working. That's how you know it's working.
It is working.
Oh, well, excellent. And also want to make note before we get into today's topic, coming up in two episodes from now is going to be our digital free day, or a digital detox, as some call it. And we invite all of our listeners to participate in it with us. Basically, choose a day from when you get up to when you go to bed where you are screen free. Computer, email, phone, GPS, as much as TV, as much as possible, be screen free, be present, and just see what it does. Just experience life without having to look at a mini screen. I once heard a comedian, he said, I never understood parents that stand at their kids' soccer games holding up their iPhones and watching the play happen on a little 3-inch screen, half a foot in front of their face, when you have it happening live and in color and in 3D right there in front of you.
Yeah.
But we watch way too much of life through these little tiny screens.
Yeah. You're choosing 2 dimensions over 3 dimensions. And I understand the idea of taping, but
yes,
you want to share it maybe with folks that aren't around, grandparents that live in other places.
Hang on to memories. I'm moving. There are a lot of memories that I'm finding in boxes, so it's good to hang on to those.
It is, but there is something to be, again, what the whole point of this, present, in the moment, experiencing it. And I'll tell you, this is one of the things I'm expecting, Nate, is to be bored, right? And how do you deal with that? Because I think back to, I know what I was going to tell you. I just remembered.
Well, tell me when.
I don't know what I was going to tell you, but I'm going to tell you now.
Okay.
So
you see what I'm dealing with, folks?
I was out to dinner with my dad the other day. It was his birthday.
Yeah.
And so he was like, "Hey, come to the house, meet me, and then we'll leave from here." I'm like, "Sounds great." So we'll do it. And he points at a car in front of him and goes, "Look, 2 pair." I'm like, 2 pair? And he goes, "Yeah, the other day I found a full house." And he was like, "Yeah, and I was saw 2 cars with two cars with 2 full houses." And I'm like, "Dad,
what?"
I'm like, "Should I be driving right now?" Like, I'm like, "I don't know what you're on." Here's what he's been doing. He says, "Well, to kind of just give me something to do while I'm driving."
Yeah.
He starts looking at license plates to figure out if he can, the best poker hand he can make out of the license plate. And in
with,
Maryland,
with like the letters and numbers and such.
well, he doesn't even use the letters. Apparently, in Maryland, all the license plates have 5 digits. So he uses those 5 digits to figure out if he can make 3 of a kind, a full house, a pair, a straight, whatever. Yeah, and
That's kind of fun, actually.
it actually is.
I think that's kind of cool.
And I think back to when we were kids, and I'm like, Dad, why didn't you ever think of this when we were traveling? We used to drive to Oklahoma, which is like a 3.5-day trip. I'm like, why didn't you ever think about this then? We were just trying to figure out, oh, look, there's Alaska. And versus, I mean, we were kids. We didn't know how to play poker, but who knows? Maybe we could have learned.
Or even the alphabet game. Do you ever play the alphabet game?
No, what's the alphabet game?
The same, because you mentioned the game where you can spot the different license plates from the different states and try to like fill in the grid. The alphabet game is you can use any signage, license plate, anything, and you have to find all of the letters of the alphabet in order A through Z. And you race, my siblings and I would do this, you would race the person next to you to see who could get to Z first.
So you couldn't move on until you found that letter.
Correct. And if I found like an H on the Honda in front of us, then the other person would have to find a different H.
Oh, so you couldn't share?
No, because you were in competition.
No, I never heard of this one.
Yeah,
we didn't do this one either.
It was really fun.
Yeah, we were very light on this. So anyways, my point is
I derailed you.
This is the things that you do when you're bored. No, you didn't derail. These are the things that you do when you're bored, right? So here he is in the car by himself, bored, and he came up with his own game to keep himself entertained in the car. So I expect that we'll be bored on Digital Free Day. That's the point I was making. And it'll be interesting just to kind of figure out what comes from that. I've heard some folks talk about that some of your best ideas, think about being in the shower.
Yeah.
I heard someone mention this.
It's because you're not doing anything else.
You're not doing anything else, right? So your brain is just, it's thinking, it's doing whatever it's going to do.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people talk about the fact that like all my great ideas come as soon as my head hits the pillow, right? And then I can't sleep and, but the point is you're going to go digital free. You're going to miss out on those screens. You're going to get a little bit bored. I'm excited to kind of see what comes from that.
Yeah.
So yeah, please join us. And I think this is important. If you're going to spend the day with some loved ones, you probably need them to come along with you.
Encourage them to participate. Yeah,
absolutely. I've been encouraging my wife. Let's do this. Let's pick a day. We're actually heading down to the beach for my daughter's graduation.
That's right.
But we've got a day after that where there's nothing going on, nothing planned, and so
you'll just both digital detox the whole day.
And I'm like, we're on the beach, walking around. South Carolina should be the perfect time and place to be able to do that and be present with family for a special occasion and all of those things. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Fantastic.
So join us.
Please do. So tonight's topic, I keep saying tonight because it is the night when we're recording this, though it will be released at 4:30 in the morning on Monday.
For some people, that'll still be night.
That's true.
Normal people who don't wake up at 4:30 in the morning.
Mike asked me the question, can a good leader be a bad communicator? And I had to stop and think because on the surface, it's like, well, yeah, of course, a good leader could be a bad communicator because they could delegate tasks. They could hire coaches to help them be better communicators. They hire speech writers to help them deliver speeches.
But isn't that stuff just making them a better communicator? So I mean, it's almost the opposite. So if I'm hiring someone to help me write a speech or to help me with my stuff, then I'm kind of recognizing that I need to be a good communicator.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all of that ties into it.
So you can get to leadership without being a good communicator, but are you saying can I be a successful leader and never develop good communication skills?
Well, let's back it up a little bit before we get to that. What does it mean to be a good leader? Just for the purposes of this discussion, because that could be a whole podcast in and of itself. There have been countless books written on the topic. A good leader. Are we talking just results? Are we talking about the people, the performance of the team, the performance of the individuals? How would you? Is it? Here's a couple examples. Is it a short term versus long term runway that we're looking at for a leader? So if a leader hits every target and their team is performing optimally, but the team is confused and there's a lot of turnover and there's low morale, is that still a good leader? Their performance is on point, but the team is in disarray. So are they still a good leader? Or on the flip side, if a leader is just inspiring and has a lot of clear communication and is beloved by the team, but they miss targets constantly, are they still a good leader?
Yeah, and you're framing this up in the business side of it, which is a lot of what we focus on. But my head goes to, when I think about leaders, I even think about, look, community leaders. I think about, political leaders. I think of, military leaders. I start to try to put it into some of that context as well, where results may not always be as black and white as hitting goals, not hitting goals. I think it becomes hard, Nate, because I'm a bad communicator, but we're hitting all of our goals. Well, there's a cause and effect piece to it. If you just remove the leader altogether, would you hit the goals? Was the leader even impactful towards it? And I think some of it also comes down to, like, well, what type of leader, right? Like, are you a leader of an entire organization, a very large organization, a company, where you're not as hands-on, or are you a leader that is hands-on inside of a team? And I think that makes a difference as well, because I think you don't, if you're that hands-on leader that's working shoulder to shoulder, side by side with individuals, maybe on a factory floor, maybe in a more tradesman type job.
Yep.
Maybe that communication doesn't have to be, because maybe some of your nonverbal communication, the way you act, the way you move, the way you complete tasks, is an example that others follow, versus the verbal directions that maybe you provide if you're not in that environment.
Sure.
So do I have to have great verbal communication skills in order to lead others? I would say no, you don't have to, but I do think it probably puts limitations on what is achievable.
And I agree with that, because I think if we're going back to the definition of what makes a good leader, I think it is a combination of both. I think you have to have measurable results in how the team performs, whether it's a tradesman, a general contractor building a house, or someone who's working with a sales team and they have a certain quota that they need to hit. The goals, there are measurable goals there for a reason. Either the house is done well or it's not. Either the quotas are met or they're not. But within that, there's also needs to be some good communication in there as well. So I do think one of the words you've used a lot in this podcast, Mike, is balance. I think there needs to be a good balance between the two, and I don't think that that's as easily measured. One thing that I was thinking about in terms of good leadership that I think is overlooked is retention and team development. I think if you have a good leader, your team is going to want to stay with you as the leader. They're going to want to stay with the company, and you're going to help launch them to the next phase of their career, if that's something that they're trying to do and accomplish, or if they're content where they are and want to keep doing what they're doing for the next 20 years, you're going to help them be great in that position as well.
You made me think of something historical here, right? So Civil War.
Yeah.
You had Grant on one side. You had Lee on the other.
Yes.
Who was the better leader? By everything I've ever studied and read, Robert E. Lee was a much better military leader than Ulysses S. Grant.
Right.
Ulysses S. Grant just had a lot more manpower, had a lot more resources to throw at the problem.
Yeah.
And ultimately for the better.
Yes.
But
yes.
when it came to who actually was able to lead better, it was Lee. Now, Lee lost.
Right.
The war when it was all said and done. And you can even look at Ulysses S. Grant as a president, horrible president, right? Not successful at all.
It's the Peter principle.
Yeah. And rise to the level of incompetence, right?
Yes, the highest level of your own incompetence.
Yeah. Yep. I look at something like that where it's you can see didn't have the success, or I guess the ultimate success, but was by far the better leader and probably the better communicator than the other individual. So what makes a good leader? I don't know if you can define a leader just by their wins and losses. I do agree with the retention piece of it as well, their ability to keep people and maintain folks. I'll tell you, for me, what I want to be remembered as a leader is Mike was a guy that made my life better. I was able to achieve things in my career and I was able to maybe have some of that work-life integration that some will probably just call balance, because I got to work with Mike. And it's not even I don't think leadership, we've talked about this, I don't think leadership is the direct report side of it either, right?
No, you can lead by influence.
I can lead.
Title.
You're right. I can lead individuals without them reporting directly to me.
Correct. Yep.
And so I know for myself personally, I hope to be a leader that is remembered by the impact that I had on someone's life. Because I don't think anyone's going to remember, gosh, in 2025, Mike was at 135% of his goal, right? What I think people will remember is they're going to look back someday and they're going to say, I had this boss one time. That's a story that I hope someone tells.
Yeah. Yeah. It's we use a lot of sports analogies on this podcast. They call it in football and baseball, the intangibles. It's the thing about a person that you can't really describe, that doesn't fit on a stat sheet, but it's just as valuable, if not more so, than the ability to line up a curveball or to run an out route.
So your question about what makes a good leader and a bad leader, we've talked about this a little bit.
And just for the purposes of this discussion, we're not going to be able to actually define it tonight.
I think a good leader is one that is able to set a clear vision of what we're trying to do, what your part in it is, has the ability to help lift you up, and gets to know you and what you're capable of, and maybe helps to stretch you beyond what you thought was achievable, right? And takes you places that you didn't necessarily even see for yourself, but they were maybe able to see a little bit deeper. I heard someone describe it this. I thought this was great. He said, sometimes leaders have to believe in people before they believe in themselves, and you have to keep believing in them until they finally catch up with your belief of them. And that really resonated. And I've seen that, where I had individuals that thought, gosh, I'm not any good at this. I don't think I can do this. Maybe I've made the wrong choice here. Maybe I should be doing something else. And I've had those conversations in review sessions. And I remember with this one individual saying, no, you really do have the ability to do this. You got a couple of areas you got to work out that are going to help you be efficient and effective. But this really is for you. And I had to believe in her and wait for her belief to catch up and coach her in such a way to try to get her belief to catch up. And that doesn't always happen.
No.
But if you can, it's amazing to see what happens on the other side.
Well, let me ask you this, though. If this is too deep, we can edit it out later. Do you find as a leader that it's sometimes easier to believe in the potential of others than it is to believe in your own?
Yes. Oh, we could absolutely do an entire session on imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
It's 100% real. We got a family friend right now. I'm
going to jot that down.
That just had been searching for a job for a long time, finally found one. And I think we've all been here. Day one, day two is struggling with that. Oh my gosh, can I really do this? Am I going to fit into this culture? Do I have the right skill set? Am I too old to learn the things that I need to learn?
Yeah.
And is dealing with some of that imposter syndrome. I think it absolutely is real. I actually think in some ways it's healthy. I think it's a humbling factor.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that.
Yeah. So, yes, it can be easier to believe in others than it is to believe in yourself.
And I think one of the greatest tools to work through that as an individual and as a team is through communication and communication skills. So see what I did there? Brought us back full circle to our topic. Mike, you mentioned earlier that a leader could delegate some communication tasks. We were speech writing. They could delegate speech writing. They could delegate their social media presence. I mean, very few people in leadership positions manage their own social media platforms.
And some should not.
And some. Very, very, very true. Here's what's interesting. The strongest argument in favor of leaders being able to struggle with communication is that they can delegate those communication tasks to other people. However, the problem then becomes that the person becomes the mouthpiece of the vision as opposed to the leader. So are you really actually following the leader when it's someone else's words and someone else's vision? It's just coming out of that leader's mouthpiece.
Yeah, I don't think I think at some point the leader has to be able to get up in front of a group of individuals and deliver a message.
Yeah,
and I don't think you can completely delegate that. I think you can. I think you can definitely hand it off in some aspects,
and
you can get support in that. But when you hit certain challenging times,
Yes.
people want to hear from their leaders. Right?
Absolutely.
I think about like Reagan used to do his or maybe it was Roosevelt first did fireside chats, and I think Reagan had versions of them as well, and people look for those type of things, right? They're looking to hear from the person that they believe is making the final decisions and the calls.
Yes.
In whatever that capacity is. And they want to hear from that person.
Even on a micro level, on a small team, within an organization, even if it's a team of 10, 15, 25, it doesn't matter. The team wants to hear from their leader when things get crazy. And so the research comes back and really says bad communicators can lead temporarily or situationally. However, over time, good communication is going to be required from the person who is in that position of leadership. Otherwise, the team is going to look to another leader, whether it's someone who leads from influence, they don't have the title necessarily, or they're going to start looking for other teams to join. I mean, we saw that in the NFL draft just happened not too long ago, and the young man who was drafted by the New York Jets, he's refusing to sign his rookie contract.
I hadn't heard this story.
He doesn't want to be a part of the organization. And he cited specifically he doesn't trust the leadership or the direction of the organization.
Sorry, Jets fans, but can you blame him?
No, and that's, I think, very insightful for him. I mean, he's turning down the potential to dream, and who knows, he'll become a free agent. Someone else might pick him up. The dominant research view when it comes to communication in leadership is that communication is not just a leadership skill, but it is, in fact, the central mechanism through which leadership exists, or through which leadership happens. And it's not just there, and there are a whole vast array of communication types. There's the written word in emails or books or posts. There's the spoken word. It's this type of medium where it's two people talking, or we're talking to however many people we have listening, or to a large room, a presentation, or a small team meeting. There's so many facets of communication that happen in leadership that it is foundational in leadership. It's not at all optional. They did a 50-year review of 260 studies and concluded that communication is at the heart of leadership, and it directly shapes follower motivation, beliefs, and performance. Studies show correlations between communication competence and perceived leadership effectiveness across organizations. So even if you don't have the title, if you're a strong communicator, then you have the ability to lead with influence and to develop your own craft, but then also develop your team.
There have been studies that have shown that someone that is confident in a false statement was more trustworthy than an individual who was speaking something that was factual but sounded less confident.
Wow.
That the audience was more willing to lose it. And I think we see this all the time.
Sure.
Right? I mean, no one is surprised by this. But I would agree with everything, and I think the studies, there's nothing I would dispute on that. I absolutely believe that strong communication is central to leadership. And while you can get by without it for a time, there comes a moment where you need to galvanize people. You need to get folks moving in the right direction, or in a similar direction. And I think that's what you see in organizations that have thrived for a long time or have had tremendous growth, have someone at the helm that, I got an idea of where we're going, could be wrong, but I got an idea of where we're going. I know how to simplify this down for the audience so that they can understand it, get behind it, absorb it. And I can do it in such a way that they're like, I'm going to get my shovel. I'm going to get my oar. I'm in that boat. I'm paddling with you. Let's go.
Communication matters so much because of what you were just talking about, the sense making and alignment. You're helping people understand where we are, what we're about, and what we're going to do. Poor communication just leads to confusion, misalignment, and execution breakdown. We talked about that in the standards and expectations. Regardless of how you define standards and expectations, if they're poorly communicated, they don't matter. Communication matters because it ties to the motivation and the emotion, how the team feels while they're doing the thing. The leader communication influences mood of the team. It influences morale of the team. It influences, builds trust, and that directly correlates to the effort and the buy-in that you're going to get from your team.
So Nate, why are there so many bad communicators at the top of organizations?
I don't have that answer, Mike. I asked myself that the entire time that I was doing this research. It makes no sense. Why do we have bad communicators across all levels of our government? It's fascinating to me how the art of communicating and communicating clearly and concisely is just lost.
Well, how about this? What about the fact that so we're saying communication matters. You need to be a good communicator.
Communication matters more than anything else in leadership.
Okay, right. So it's not the only thing that matters, but it matters. It's significant.
Yes.
What about when you see someone who is in a leadership position because they're a smooth talker, but you look at them and go, gosh, I don't think there's a lot of confidence
I'm not buying
there.
what they're selling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even in some cases you watch and people are buying what they're selling.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, gosh, how are people following? Can they not see that this person really doesn't know what they're talking about? Or maybe there's a lack of competence. Maybe there's a lack of work ethic. Maybe there's ethical concerns.
Mm-hmm.
But man, they got a silver tongue. And so while this is true, should it be true? Should we put more stock in the fact that they're a great communicator without maybe looking at some of those other aspects? Or do you think over time, hey, communication might get you on the platform, but it may not keep you on the platform? You have to have those other facets.
Can you think of an element of leadership that matters more than communication? Or let me ask this a slightly different way. Is the leader still a leader if their team only understands the strategy through somebody else?
They are, because didn't that leader have to get the strategy? At the end of the day, the leader owns the ultimate strategy, do they not?
Yes.
So they had to get that strategy to that individual that passed it along.
Right.
Which is baked. So I think communication is DNA that is woven through every other aspect of the job.
Yes.
Every element of what you might want to do as a leader
Mm-hmm.
is woven inside of it.
Right.
Is that communication element,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. And I'll say this. I've seen folks, leaders, very high level, they are great in the one-on-one informal setting.
Yep, absolutely.
And they are horrible
presenting
at that formal, larger type presenting. And so I think that's an element of this as well.
Yeah.
So what kind of communication are we talking about? Because so I could be a leader who's great in a particular setting, but maybe not great in another setting. It still allows me to lead. Do I have to be great at both of them? I think these are all pieces. I think you mentioned at the top of this that we're going to peel this onion back and have some other segments.
Yes.
So we're going to get into more of that.
Yeah, we have to. This is a very, very broad topic. And like you mentioned, we're going in a bunch of different directions. I think that for a time, a leader can rely on a different voice box. But in the end, if they're only ever relying on somebody else to communicate their vision, I think it does dilute their leadership. And some of the responsibility falls back on the leader then to strengthen those areas of poor communication. One thing I work in an industry where it's very important to know people's names. Even if you only see them once or twice a year, it's very important to remember the names. It drives me nuts when I see other leaders in a position where knowing a name is important and they say, oh, I'm bad with names. I'm terrible with names. So you're telling me you're terrible at one of the most important aspects of your job, like right at the start of the meeting. What is that about? And I'm not saying that I'm perfect, but at the very least, I'm going to, if I know I'm having a meeting with a client, I'm going to look up their name. I'm going to review the notes. I'm going to make sure that I greet them with the proper name. And at least it doesn't mean that I remember them from 8 months ago, from 12 months ago, but I'm at least going to put forth the effort as opposed to fumble my way through and then say, oh, I'm not good with names. I think as a leader, you should never ever say, I'm not good with names. You should become good with names is what you should do.
I agree. Bill Clinton, I've heard people tell this story, and this is a perfect example, right? When they tell a story about Bill Clinton, one of the things that they talk about is names. They said that he had the ability to remember names, but not just that individual's name, but he could remember their spouse and others as well.
Yeah.
And it impressed the hell out of people, his ability to do it. Now, I've heard other people who maybe didn't have that recollection, but they would have someone who would help them.
Yeah.
They would whisper, hey, over there, this is so-and-so, right? Which again, so you've said, this is important. I'm going to find a way. I don't have maybe the recollection that Bill does,
right?
But I'm going to find a way. So I think that's the other piece of that. I recognize that I struggle with communication. So what do I need to do? For some people can get up and they can just talk. And
yes.
they're great at it. Others, and I've heard this about Steve Jobs, that he would practice. They would say that you could show up before he would do his launches of whatever the product was, and you could hear him walking his office, talking, working on his pitch for hours.
Yeah.
And even into the middle of the night, that he would still be there doing this because he wanted to make sure that he could get it right, that he could think through how he wanted to deliver it.
Yeah.
But it was working on those skills to say, how do I get better at this thing that I know is important? I know that I need to be able to deliver a message in a particular way, to reach a particular audience, to galvanize
yes.
and get a direction moving. And so with the name piece, Bill was naturally gifted. Others need to find a mechanism to do that. But it still is the leader recognizing this communication is important. And that is that's a part of it, right? Because
to be able to communicate that.
If I know your name, I walk into that interaction with a greater level of confidence.
Yes,
I probably have, I'm probably making better eye contact.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably, more thoughtful about the question I'm going to ask you because I'm not sitting here going, gosh, I don't know this guy's name. What's he thinking? What's she thinking that I don't know their name? It eliminates some of that and puts the emphasis back on what it should be, which is the moment and that interaction that you're trying to create with the individual and or the audience that you're there.
Yeah.
So I think most leaders recognize that they need to be good at communication, and they're either gifted at it and they continue to hone it, or they recognize it as an opportunity and they continue to work through it. Maybe like Steve, practicing your presentation, your speech for hours and hours and hours and hours.
I would challenge that a little bit. I don't know if most leaders recognize it. I would say that most good leaders recognize their weaknesses and recognizes their opportunities for improvement. But I don't think if we were to look at 100 leaders, I don't think that all of them, that most of them would. One of the hardest things for a leader to do, and this only really happens in truly great leaders, is to acknowledge where they don't have a strength. And to then surround themselves by people who are smarter than them or stronger than them in those areas to help make them better leaders. That because, like as we mentioned earlier, that comes from a place of humility, which a lot of leaders don't have the ego to be able to humble themselves and say, no, I need someone to help remind me of names, or I need someone to help be the voice box in this presentation. I need someone to help write this presentation because they have better words than I do. I think that a great failure, but also a great opportunity of a lot of leaders in our generation, Mike, is to be able to take stock and look at where we're falling short and where we can improve.
I don't think that's just a leadership issue, Nate. I think we all have opportunity in this area, and some, like anything else, it's on a scale, some more than others. But that self-awareness piece, the ability to recognize your own faults and shortcomings, and even more importantly, do you accept them, justify them, or work on them?
Yeah.
And I think
the I'm bad with names is accepting it and justifying it.
Well, you're justifying.
And you're abdicating responsibility to work on it. And I think that's a problem.
It can be. Yeah. You're big on the name thing.
I think names matter.
Well, I think names matter as well. I mean, that's why I always refer to you as Mark.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah, keep going.
Do you think, we've kind of talked about this a little bit, you seem to be of the mind that you can outsource communication without fully outsourcing leadership, correct?
To an extent.
Okay.
Yes.
To an extent. And is that talk to me about that extent? What does that extent look like? Is it a length of time? Is it a type of communication? Is it a particular style?
I don't think you can outsource it completely. I think that you might be able to outsource a piece of it. So you might be able to say, hey, I'm not a great writer, so I'm going to have someone help write my communications.
Okay.
I am not a great public speaker, so I'll have cue cards, or I'll have a teleprompter, or I'll have someone in my ear. I can kick off a meeting, but then I'm going to turn it to subject matter experts to fill in the meatier parts of the communication.
Yeah.
So I think you can do aspects like that. But I think when it comes down to being able to say, every leader needs to be able to get in front of their team and be able to say, this is what we're about, this is what we believe, and this is why we exist. If you can't do that piece of leadership, I think that's the piece that you cannot delegate out.
Yes, absolutely.
The other parts of it, you probably can, right? I think it still puts limitations.
You can, and I think for a certain period of time.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. It's going to put you're going to hit the end of the runway on that.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas I think about some individuals out there who are fantastic communicators. Martin Luther King's a great example of that.
Yeah.
Right. An amazing.
His whole "I Have a Dream" speech was completely improvised.
Reagan was another one. Right. Mm-hmm. Just a fantastic communicator, and they had the ability to approach almost any situation, and they really, neither one of them, I don't think, had any limitations to what they would be able to go out and try to galvanize or rally a group of individuals to do because of their ability to simplify things down, and not just simplify, but the way that they were able to create a vision.
Yes.
This is a key aspect. They were great storytellers. The really great communicators that I've ever seen are fantastic storytellers that have the ability to put an image in your mind and evoke an emotion that helps connect you to the message. Yeah. And that's probably the limitation. You can outsource some of it. Mm-hmm. That core piece of who we are, what we're about, and where we're going, and why we exist. Yes. If you can't deliver that as a leader, and you're passing that on to somebody else, I think you said it earlier, people will eventually look at that person and go, well, that's the one that is got the compass.
Right. That's who I'm following.
I should follow them. Right.
So before we close with the now what for this week, the takeaway that we have for our listeners, just want to tee up next week a little bit, and probably the next couple weeks, we're going to be looking at different facets of communication. We brought up the formal and informal, one-on-one versus group presentations. We talked about listening versus speaking. We barely touched upon that. There's a whole lot of directions that we can go in this conversation, Mike, and I'm looking forward to diving in a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Communication to me, I think is important in every aspect of our lives. You've mentioned that we've lost it in some ways.
Yes.
We absolutely have, because I think it's one of those things that you learn from previous generations, and it's been watered down. We're going to peel this onion back, and we're going to dig into some other pieces of it. I think there's a lot more for us to go to on this. But for today, Nate, what's the final thought that you leave the audience with around this subject of can you be a great leader and a poor communicator?
I think it goes back to the last 30, 40 seconds of our conversation when you were talking about outsourcing communication. Because yes, you can outsource communication, but you can't outsource trust. And trust is built through communication.
Well, that's a great use of our time today, Nate, and a wonderful place to leave our audience. So, Nate, for those individuals that want to join in on this conversation and tell us what they think, where can they find us?
We'd love to hear from you. takeitofflinepodcast@gmail.com is the best way to contact the show. Let us know your thoughts on communication. Share with us where you listen, when you listen, ask questions. Coming up, we've got our digital free day. You can give us your feedback on that if you participate in that with us. You can also make sure that you share these episodes with your friends. We're building a listenership, a worldwide listenership, Mike, which is fun to watch that continue to grow.
We're communicating across the world.
And we invite you all to be a part of it. So until next time, everybody, take care of yourselves.
And take care of each other. The Take It Offline podcast is a production of Take It Offline Media. All views and opinions are ours alone, reasonably informed and meant for personal enrichment and entertainment.
Are you not entertained?
Views expressed do not represent any particular organization or employer. Copyright 2026 by Take It Offline Media.